Hamilton did not make the Ferrari faster by braking later. He made it faster by braking smarter. The SF-26 had a hidden problem. When the battery was full, the rear regenerative braking could suddenly disappear, forcing the cold mechanical rear brakes to take over. That shifted the balance forward, made the front brakes bite too hard, and left Leclerc saying the car reacted abnormally the moment he touched the pedal. But Hamilton had already found the answer. A different brake specification, earlier braking points, smoother rotation, progressive pedal pressure, a way to stop the Ferrari from shocking its own rear axle. That is why Hamilton could take podiums while Leclerc was losing confidence in the same car. And when Leclerc finally moved toward Hamilton's setup direction, Ferrari revealed the truth. Hamilton was not just adapting to the SF-26. He was teaching Ferrari how the car needed to be driven. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why Hamilton's braking change mattered so much, you have to start with the most uncomfortable truth about the Ferrari SF-26. The car was not simply difficult, it was inconsistent. And for Formula One driver, inconsistency under braking is one of the worst problems a car can have. A driver can live with oversteer if it appears in the same way every lap. He can live with understeer if he knows exactly when it arrives. He can drive around poor traction, a nervous rear, a weak front end, or a car that refuses to rotate quickly enough. But when the brake pedal does not always produce the response the driver expects, confidence disappears. And once confidence disappears under braking, the entire lap begins to collapse. That was the hidden battle inside Ferrari. From the outside, people saw Hamilton adapting to a new team, a new car, and a new technical environment. They saw Leclerc still trying to impose his natural style on the Ferrari. They saw one driver growing calmer, and the other growing more frustrated. But the real story was happening before the apex. The moment the driver hit the brakes. The moment the car had to decide how to slow down. And in the 2026 generation of Formula One cars, that moment became more complicated than ever. The rear axle was no longer slowed only by conventional brakes. A huge part of the braking behavior now came through energy recovery. The car could harvest electrical energy under braking, using resistance from the regenerative system to help slow the rear wheels while sending energy back into the battery. When that system worked smoothly, it was powerful. But when the battery state changed, the feeling could change with it. That is where the danger began. If the battery was already full, the car did not need to harvest as much energy. That meant the regenerative braking effect at the rear could reduce or disappear. Suddenly, the conventional rear brakes had to take over more of the work. But those rear brakes had not always been working hard enough to stay in the perfect temperature window. So the driver could arrive at a corner expecting one braking balance, only to feel something completely different. The rear would not support the car enough. The balance would move forward. The front brakes would suddenly become too dominant. The car would understeer, then lock. And the driver would be left with the worst possible feeling. He did not make a normal mistake. The car changed beneath him. That is why Leclerc struggled so deeply. His natural strength has always been attack. Late braking, precision on entry, the confidence to arrive at a corner, brake deep, rotate the car aggressively, and trust the front end to bite. In many Formula One cars, that style is a weapon. But in the SF-26, that same style could become dangerous. Because the car did not always want to be attacked late. It wanted to be prepared early. That is the difference Hamilton found. He understood that the problem was not solved by bravery. It was solved by timing. He did not need to brake later to look spectacular. He needed to brake in a way that gave the rear axle stability before the system could surprise him. So Hamilton changed the rhythm of the corner. He began braking earlier. Not slowly, not cautiously, earlier with purpose. There is a huge difference. A cautious driver brakes early because he is afraid of the car. Hamilton was braking earlier because he wanted to control the car before the instability had a chance to appear. That is why the trick is easy to misunderstand. People hear earlier braking and think it means slower driving. But in Formula One, the lap is not one only at the first meter of the braking zone. It is one across the whole corner. Entry, rotation, apex, traction, and exit all have to connect. If braking later unsettles the rear, overloads the front, creates understeer, and ruins the exit, then it is not fast. It is only dramatic. Hamilton's method was different. He applied the brake with smoother pressure. He released it more progressively. He rotated the car without shocking the rear axle. He avoided a sudden transfer of load that would exaggerate the weakness in the brake system. Then he picked up the throttle with the car already settled, rather than trying to rescue it after the rear had become unstable. That is how he made the Ferrari respond differently. Not by forcing the SF-26 to become another car, by asking it for performance in the only way it could consistently deliver. This is why the brake specification became such a major part of the story. Hamilton reportedly moved to a different brake disc specification, identified in the source as Carbon Industries brake discs. That change was not random. It was aimed at two problems that had haunted the Ferrari braking feel: warm-up variability and initial bite aggressiveness. Warm-up variability means the brakes do not always reach their ideal working temperature at the same moment, with the same consistency across every phase of the race. That is a nightmare when the car already has a complex relationship between regenerative braking and mechanical braking. Initial bite aggressiveness means the brake can respond too sharply at the beginning of pedal pressure. The driver touches the brake, and instead of a clean, predictable build-up, the front axle can grab too hard too quickly. For a driver like Leclerc, who naturally attacks late and hard, that is dangerous. For Hamilton, the solution was to make the system more linear, more predictable, more manageable across different battery states. That is the key word: predictable. Hamilton was not asking Ferrari for a brake that was simply stronger. He was asking for a brake he could trust, a brake that behaved in a more progressive way, a brake that did not suddenly punish him when the energy recovery system changed its contribution. And once he had that direction, his driving style amplified it. The specification gave him a broader and more stable operating window. His technique kept the car inside that window. That combination is what made the difference. This is why Canada became such an important turning point. Ferrari arrived with both drivers facing the same difficult car, but they did not experience the weekend in the same way. Leclerc's confidence kept falling as the instability appeared. Hamilton's confidence grew because he had found a way to manage the problem. That contrast was brutal. Same team, same car concept, same circuit, completely different emotional experience. For Leclerc, the car was becoming something he could not fully trust. For Hamilton, it was becoming something he could guide. That is the difference between surviving a difficult car and extracting performance from it. Hamilton's podium in Canada was not just a result. It was evidence. Evidence that the SF-26 still had performance, but only if the driver understood the braking transition. Evidence that the problem was not only mechanical, but behavioral. Evidence that the fastest way through the weakness was not necessarily to attack harder, but to attack earlier, smoother, and with more discipline. That is what made Hamilton's adaptation so important for Ferrari. He was not hiding the problem. He was showing the team how to live with it until they could engineer it properly. And that is exactly what elite drivers do at their highest level. They become sensors. They feel the car before the data explains it. They describe the instability before the engineers can reproduce it cleanly. They change technique before the upgrade arrives. They turn discomfort into direction. Hamilton did that with the brakes. And the deeper Ferrari looked, the more the problem seemed to connect back to the structure of the new regulations. The more powerful electrical system had changed braking. The interaction between battery charge, regenerative braking, and hydraulic pressure was now central to how the car behaved. The brake-by-wire system had to manage that relationship constantly. When it worked, the car could be fast. When it did not, the car could feel almost impossible. That is why the SF-26 could look like two different machines, depending on who was driving it. With Leclerc's ultralight braking style, the car could fall into the dangerous transition more violently. With Hamilton's smoother preparation, the same transition could be softened before it became crisis. That does not mean Hamilton was simply better in every corner. It means he found the specific driving language this Ferrari required. And that is what Ferrari had been missing. Every car has a language. Some want aggression, some want patience, some want early rotation, some want deep trail braking, some reward a driver who throws the car in. Others punish that and demand a cleaner platform before the apex. The SF-26 was telling Ferrari something very specific. Do not shock the rear. Do not let the braking transition arrive suddenly. Do not overload the front before the rear is ready. Hamilton listened first. That is why his change was so powerful. Because it was not flashy. It was not easy to sell in one replay. It was not the kind of trick a casual viewer can instantly see. It was buried in pedal pressure, timing, and confidence. But the effect was visible. The car looked calmer. Hamilton looked more composed. Leclerc looked increasingly uncomfortable. And inside Ferrari, the direction became impossible to ignore. The new braking approach did not only help Hamilton, it gave Ferrari a path to rescue Leclerc's confidence too. That matters because a team cannot fight Mercedes with one driver carrying the technical solution and the other fighting the car every weekend. Ferrari needed both drivers aligned, but alignment meant something politically sensitive. Leclerc had to move toward Hamilton's direction. That is not a small thing. Leclerc had been Ferrari's reference for years. His braking aggression, his qualifying speed, and his ability to extract one-lap performance had shaped how people understood the team. Hamilton arrived as the outsider, the champion adapting to a new environment, the driver many doubted would reshape Ferrari around him. And then the brake story flipped the dynamic. Hamilton was not just adapting, he was leading the solution. That is why this first block matters. Because the braking trick was not one isolated technique. It was the beginning of a technical shift inside Ferrari. It showed that the SF-26 did not need more blind aggression. It needed a calmer, more progressive way of entering corners. It needed a brake specification that made the response linear. It needed a driver who could feel the unstable transition before it became visible. Hamilton became that driver. And once he did, Ferrari had to face the truth. The car that punished Leclerc's natural strength was responding to Hamilton's restraint. That is the hidden twist. Hamilton did not make the Ferrari faster by being more aggressive. He made it faster by knowing exactly when not to be. But the story did not become unavoidable until Monaco. Because Canada showed the difference. Monaco exposed the danger. There are some circuits where a driver can drive around uncertainty. He can leave a little margin, adjust his references, accept a slightly imperfect car, and still get through the weekend. But Monaco is not one of those places.